Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Last time you remember we left you off at the palace in Turkey. Well, we're going to go right back there because there are some beautiful things to see as we can take a look at right here. These all belong to the Sultan, didn't they, Betty? And his harem.
And his harem. I would imagine, looking at the mirror and stuff, a lot of them belong to the harem.
Well, from what I understand, the Sultan did have a rather big harem. Look at that. Isn't that something?
What is it?
It's a cradle for a baby.
It's something. Oh, is that right?
Yeah, now look here. This is a gold candlestick holder. And it's taller than you or I.
I wonder where in the world they would have put something like that. You know.
Man, one of the rooms in the palace, I suspect.
I would imagine. I could have figured that out. I thought maybe you knew exactly.
Somewhere where they needed light. I mean, it was going to hold a candle after all, right?
Okay.
Sure.
All right, whatever you say.
It is beautiful, though.
They couldn't burn the candle at both ends on that one.
Not on that one. No, I don't think so.
No way.
And there's the other one in another case over there across the way. I'll tell you, there were lots and lots of treasures in this place. We didn't have time to videotape all of them, but you can see the royal couch. Oh, and here's another throne. We saw one in last week's program.
Now, this is the kind of a museum that I like. I mean, I like seeing things like this that are of interest to me, but I don't like to see...
You mean jewels and things like that? That's what you want to see.
I don't want to see all that armor and tanks and all of that sort of stuff.
That's because you're a female and you're not interested
come on.
in all that.
I don't...
Look at the inlaid here, and look at all the little pearls.
Is that mother of pearl or is
no,
that is pearl?
I think that's a real pearl.
The real pearl, huh?
The throne presented as a gift to Mahmud by the Shah of Persia. And now these were some of the outer garments.
Color didn't show quite as well in that because there wasn't enough light.
No.
Yes.
But these were really magnificent, and to think that that these have been kept all these years. Of course, they've been kept under glass there, as you can see.
But well, the men dressed beautifully.
Oh, of course.
My gosh, I think
the men were the peacocks.
Yes,
in
absolutely.
Those days,
you know, these look almost like chasubles.
It does, doesn't it? And look at this. Now.
That.
So next day, okay, bingo. Next day we're at the airport and we got fogged in. Sounds like a Fresno day, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, it brought back memories of being back in Fresno. But it was very unexpected. It just boing, down it came.
It sure did. So we sat there for a little while, and it was interesting. And
it was more than a little while, Marv. It was like 4 hours.
Something like that.
But I want to tell you that was interesting because we
got to
really saw the people.
And certainly did.
Even none of my people objected. They said, hey, if we have to wait any place, this is a good place to wait. Yeah.
Well, now we're going to go on to Ankara. That's where we're headed for, and we're going to listen to our guide.
We'll be driving through Ankara, to have an idea about the town, the old town, the new town, the main street, Atatürk Boulevard. Also, we drive by the mausoleum of Atatürk. We will be driving up toward the what we call presidential palace, where the president lives and works, and the residence of Prime Minister. Close by is the American embassy, etc. So we're going to be sort of driving through Ankara and then continuing our journey down toward Cappadocia.
Mehmet, our guide, just mentioned Cappadocia, and that, to me, is the real exciting part of Turkey, which we're going to go to.
Yes.
Very exciting, very exciting. We should mention that Ankara, or Ankara, I'm not quite sure however you want to pronounce it, but you pronounce it different ways, I guess. It's the elevation is about 2,800 feet, and you know, Betty, it's surrounded by 6,000-foot mountains, and so a lot of times it does get snow in the wintertime around there, and it can become very, very chilly in that part of Turkey. You know, when we went over to the coast, it was very, very warm in some areas over there and foggy in other parts.
Well, just like weather everywhere we go. But this, look out here. You could be just about anywhere, couldn't you?
Really is pretty, isn't it?
So much of the countryside is alike wherever we go.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's listen to Mehmet, our guide, again.
First name historically was called Ansiro or Ankira. It was changed to Angora. Have you heard about this name? No. The word Angora? The sweater, yes. Made of? Angora goats. Yes. Ankara was very famous with it. They had a lot over here, but it's dying out now. I mean, the Turkish people go to buy Angora sweaters and all that in Scotland here and there now. But of course, it was a trademark for this city, therefore it was called Angora. Even the elderly people of the town still call this city Angora instead of Ankara, the way we pronounce it now, Ankara. We have about 3.5 million people living over here in Ankara now. It is the capital city of this Turkish Republic. We are driving toward the center, but these are the suburbs of Ankara. Whether you enter Ankara from the north, as we do now, or south, in any case, you will be seeing some of these shabby houses, poorly built houses, forming like the ghetto of Ankara. Now these are new buildings coming up, of course, but they used to be quite dilapidated, and especially a little bit more down there, you will see quite a lot of them against the mountain, against the slope of the low hills, etc., and practically difficult to drive up there. Practically there is no road, but people can just sort of take this road into the lower part of the mountain and walk up that way. This is a socio-economic problem for Turkey because the people living in southeastern part of Turkey or in the countryside, the farmers, the village men, the village people, they wanted to have a better life. They wanted to earn more and lead a better life. With this concept and interest, they sold their land out in the countryside. The land is not very expensive, of course. They sold the land, their cattle, etc., and they migrated to these large cities like Istanbul being the largest, Ankara the second largest, Izmir the third largest in terms of population, and down in the south we have Adana. It faces the same problem. So they migrated starting about 30-35 years ago to such large cities, and they started looking for jobs. They brought some money, when they sold the land, the cattle, etc. But only when they came over here, they found out that the money they brought along was not sufficient. They started looking for a house, an apartment to rent, and it was not enough. It was scarce, not too many in the town center, and whatever they found was expensive. And they said there's no way for them to rent these places and to pay for the rent. So what did they do? You cannot be living out in the tent. They just moved to the suburbs of these large cities, during which time the city did not expand this much. These are the towns, the suburban houses I tell you, I'm speaking to you about now, one, sometimes two-storied houses against the hillside. So if you imagine 30-35 years ago, in the 60s, this thing started and continued into 70s, of course, and to a lesser extent, we have this problem, but now the law is more strict about these issues. So these people coming from the countryside, this was the state land, not occupied, not used for any reason. So whatever money they had, they rushed to buy some cement and brick. So they started building a home for themselves, 1 room or 2 rooms or 3 rooms like that, so that the family could go in, move in to live. During that time, there was even no bus service over here, no electricity, no water, no telephone, when it all started like that. And we call them mushroom homes or built overnight houses, because like the mushrooms, popping up one after another, or else when the government officials, clerks were not around, or when they were off duty, in the middle of the night, in the darkness, with candlelight and all that, they rushed to build these homes, so they came out one after another. One day, nothing, the second day, so many of them, so it continued like that. The municipality of the cities could not control this because of the large number of migrations. It turned out to be a big social problem all over the country. It was brought to the attention of the Grand Assembly and all that. Marketplace on the right. And the political parties took advantage of this. When the general elections were held, they said, vote for me, for my party. Later on, I will sell this land to you, I will give this land to you, so you will be the new owner of this land, etc., blah, 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 blah. But, of course, they cheated the people for a while, and later on, inevitably, the law had to be revised to that effect that at least people became the owners of this land, and as they changed the law, they paid some taxes to the government in that respect, and they own the land and the building on top of that now. And gradually, because they have jobs now, and then the whole family, they are all working together. So if they manage to save some money, they are trying to sort of upgrade the building, or if it's too dilapidated, they just demolish and then try to have a 2-3 story building, like you can see on the right hand side now. Gradually, that means he's either made some money, or else, because the city is expanding now, in the center of the town there is no land left to start with, and if there is anything, you have to pay a lot of money. So gradually, as the city expands, in all 4 directions to the suburbs, what happens? Some contractors, construction companies, come to buy this land, not toward the top of the hill or the mountain, but more of this like on the flat land, and they say, okay, we developed this land for you, and then just by a certain ratio, depending on the location, 20, 30, 40% of the total number of flats they give to the owner of the land, because the land is gradually become expensive. So all of a sudden, this man, who moved over here some 20, 30, 35 years ago, turns out to be a new landlord.
Marv, that's very similar to what's happening right here in the San Joaquin Valley. Our farmers have sold their places. If sometimes the kids don't want to work them anymore, or they get such a good price they can't turn it down.
Yeah, well, that's true. The developers come in and will offer them very good prices, or the land has, the taxes have gone up so much on it. So I think that happens probably all over the world,
I'm
don't you?
sure. But Marv, the one thing that I really noticed, and I asked questions about it, but I really didn't get a good answer, was why they have so many empty ones. We went blocks and blocks and
that'll
blocks.
come out later on. We'll tell you about that after a little bit.
Yes, but there is a lot of it.
The goats in and around Ankara are also famous. From goat hair, they make this woolen sweaters and all that, which of course keep you warm. We have goats in the south as well, around Antalya. When we go over the Taurus Mountains in a couple of days, you're going to see quite a lot of them as well. Ankara was selected to be the new capital city, not Istanbul, which was the capital city for the past civilizations, but it was difficult, land was scarce, surrounded by water, various political, social and strategical reasons. Ankara, being in the center of Turkey, was chosen to be the new capital city. The Ankara citadel is on your left now. Here you can see the hilltops. This is the remains of the Ankara citadel, where we have a history going back to 4000 BC. We understand this from the remains of the pottery and all that. And in about 8th century BC, the so-called sea people coming from Europe, and part of them were called Phrygians, they destroyed the first ever built empire on this land called Hittite Empire, and Hattushas was the capital city northeast of the city, and Ankara area was also one of the important areas. They destroyed this Hittite Empire. They all went down to the southeast, and during that time the Phrygians established a dynasty over here, which turned into a kingdom, and their capital city was east of Ankara, which is slightly sort of to the right on this bus now. And they took control of this area and built this citadel of Ankara on the hilltop to your left. We don't have very much from those days. This one on the right hand side, under excavation now, as it is already the old town, is Karakalla Roman Baths. Karakalla was the Roman emperor of the 3rd century AD. Of course, history follows the chronology, so I can speak to you more about it when we leave Ankara. In the 3rd century, a huge bath complex was built for and dedicated to Roman Emperor Karakalla, right over here on the right hand side under excavation. But you're going to be seeing a nice one in Ephesus when we get there. I will give you the details all about it. Apart from the fortress of Ankara, the Karakalla Roman Baths, we have one simple column behind the buildings over here, dating from early Byzantine period. Julia, as the name was for the emperor, dedicated to him, as it was sort of a square or roundabout. Tamam, Maltepe'den Kızılay'dan da yukarıya Çankaya ve oradan çıkıp gidiyoruz. Başka indirmeyeceğim ben hiç. This is the center of the old town, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to be turning right, sort of to get close to the mausoleum of Atatürk before darkness, of course. On the left-hand side, but ahead of you, there is one statue, our national leader Atatürk, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, on his horse. This symbolizes the War of Independence for us in early 20th century, right after the First World War against the Allies. So there are some statues in the foreground, two soldiers defending the country, a woman in the background carrying some cannons, cannonballs, etc., helping the army. This is the town center for the so-called Old Town. And going down this street, we have these buildings now. This building where you see the flags, it was used to take the decision that Turkey would be a Republican city in that building. Whereas the first parliament was here, this building on the right-hand side. Now you see it to your right. The first Grand Assembly, National Assembly, where Atatürk and his friends came together to liberate the country and to fight off against the allies of the First World. So all those major decisions and subsequent to these decisions and after the liberation of the country, they all came back together in the same area and they implemented quite a number of socio-economic and civil reforms that I will be mentioning to you later on. What we call from the French word metro or the subway is under construction. As a result of this, you have a little bit of a problem over here. It will be going. It's still under construction. The railroad over here. The largest city park in Ankara is this one. Gradually to your left, it covers a huge area if you see it from high above. This is a sports complex. We have the indoor swimming pool, soccer fields, and a large stadium because we have a professional league, the first, second, and third divisions. Only the third division is amateur. The first and second divisions in soccer are professional. So we have this one complex over here. There are a few more within the area. Straight ahead of you is an old building made of the stones from the nearby mountains. This is TCDD, that's the train station in Ankara. It does not quite cope with the demands of present day, traffic and all that, but still they use it until a new one is built. The city intercity bus terminal is built anew. It's a huge one, not as big as the one in Istanbul, but it is huge over here. One small parachute tower, if you want to sort of practice parachute jumping, that's up to you. I think you will recall your memory, in the 1950, America went to Korea to fight off against North Korea, and so did some Turkish soldiers with the US Army. Here, on the right-hand side, through the tree, maybe you can see a monument over there. Can you make it? This is built by the Korean embassy in Ankara, in memory of those Turkish soldiers who participated in the battles over there along with the American army and who got killed and became martyrs and buried in our hearts.
They were good soldiers too.
Yes, they were. So this is built much later, of course, but at least even years later it was remembered in that respect. They were tough. Even nowadays, I heard this on one of the occasions from a Korean group when we were talking about this. Even today, when they talk about bravery and all that, there's always a reference to this bravery of the Turkish soldiers. In the mausoleum, those of you sitting in the front, is way straight ahead of you, like a temple-shaped structure. We're going to be driving around it, and as we get closer, you're going to see it better. We can slow down, and then if the camera is good enough, of course, you can just try one or two shots from the bus. It's up to you. So you have the temple-shaped monument, the mausoleum over there, inside which our national leader Atatürk is buried. Then you have an alley when there is a ceremony, etc., or like the anniversary of something. The original entrance is from here, as I said to you. although we have soldiers 24 hours, visit is up to 4 o'clock. It's only even if you want to go in. Then you have this International Peace Park. The reason is this: when Atatürk was buried over here in 1953, he died earlier, 1938, just before the Second World War started. He was buried at a different place in the old town, in the backyard of a museum, and then came the Second World War. So after the war, an international architectural competition was held. Many projects were submitted. One submitted by two famous Turkish architects were approved by the government, and it is built according to that plan, which was completed in 1953. So the remains of the bones were brought over here, as you can see now from this angle. The upper part is just like one line of pillars or columns around the building. You have the basement, the ground floor, which is even bigger. So he's buried inside, not in the building, but underneath in the basement, because in Islam you have to dig the earth out, make a grave, bury the person with the shroud, and cover by earth again. So this is the system. The upper structure is just decorative, so to speak, and to pay your respect and all that, of course. And in a couple of days, actually, he passed away on November the 10th at 9:05 a.m. in the morning. So today is 8th, right?
Today's 8th, yeah.
8th. So Sunday will be the anniversary. So all over Turkey at 9:05, people stop to respect for maximum 5 minutes. Now you see the monument over here. While looking at this monument, it is on the extreme right-hand side, where there is a marble inside, as I say, just in the shape of a grave, but it's only decoration. Underneath that marble is his grave. So the other side of this, you have some towers in the shape of war tents, as Turks were original nomads, and they used to sort of go stay and live in the tents during the battle. It's all guarded by the soldiers. They are replaced every 2 hours, because it's compulsory over here. You are drafted at the age of 20 for a service of now 1.5 years.
Well, that is one big building up there, and of course that's very, very important to the Turkish people. You mentioned that we were there also on the day, which was the 10th of November, when everything stood still for, what was it, about a minute or so, I think, in
honor of
Atatürk's.
Ataturk.
So that was
not more than 5 minutes. I think that was what he said.
Yeah, everything did stop.
Stops.
Yeah, I know we happened to be in a little village at that particular time. What was interesting is what it was explained is I was wondering how, and he touched on a little bit of how the nation came to be, but evidently it was after World War I, and the Sultan took the treasury and fled off to England, and then after that, several of the areas of Turkey then all came together, and they decided that they would declare an independent state. Now that was after World War I. So it's had quite a history, of course, during that time, and way back when, before that, which we'll get into in other programs as we get into areas that are more historical than what we're seeing here. Of course, what we're seeing here is we're getting kind of a real fast overview, yeah, of the capital itself, which is, as he mentioned, how many million people were there, and of course we were hitting it right about peak traffic time, I think, too.
I wonder how many of our viewers in watching this are thinking, I never knew there were that many people in Turkey. I never knew there were that many people lived there. That was my reaction.
Well, I think what you had mentioned a little bit before, when we saw a lot of these housing places that were not finished, or have not been finished in and around the cities, that it just looked like there were thousands and thousands of these big places that were kind of like at a standstill. And it was explained to us, if I understood it correctly, that what happens is that you can go in and you can buy into a building. You get several people. They're going to, I guess it's more like a co-op, evidently.
Yeah.
And so you collect a certain amount of money, and you do that every month. And when you get a certain amount done, then they will go and they do a certain amount of building, and then I guess that treasury's got to build back up again before it gets done. Because I remember he was stating later on that in one of the areas he and his family had bought into one of these places. Somebody couldn't make the payments on it,
Well,
and so he
he's
took it over.
in Istanbul. He said he lives in Istanbul in the new section of
Yeah,
Istanbul.
but this was a place outside. I think it was like in a lake district somewhere.
I don't
like
know.
a weekend or a summer home.
I don't always listen,
But
but
Were you napping?
I didn't think I got a very good explanation for it because there were just too many of them.
Well, that's what he's
And
saying.
Denise
Everybody
told me when she went that it was
uh-huh.
the same thing. It just didn't make sense to have all those
to have all
empties.
those empty
No.
ones. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Well, I guess it takes a while to make the money. Anyway, here in this particular area where this plaza is, which is sort of in kind of the center of town, is where a lot of the young people meet, and there's some universities around this particular area. And this street had a lot of nice shops on it.
And trees, I
Oh,
like
yes,
that,
yeah.
yes.
And a lot of the ministry offices were around here, Ministry of Education and various other ones. And but if you look kind of closely, you'll see some signs there that you recognize on some of the brands that you can probably find most anywhere in the world.
A lot of taxi cabs because I guess it's terribly expensive to own a car. So most people can't, although it doesn't look like it when you see how many are on the road.
I think in any city, a car. If I lived in a big city, I don't think I'd have a car. I think I'd use a public transportation. You can get around a lot
come
faster.
on. I
Oh,
can't
sure.
imagine you
Where are you
standing
gonna put
waiting
it?
for a car.
No, it costs you too much money to do that. Anyway, let's find out some more about the government.
On the right-hand side, among the greenery, the green trees and all that, is the new parliament, actually, for Turkey. We've got 550 guys over there, good for nothing.
Sounds like ours.
Big bullies, big necks, and they are all there to fill their pockets during their term of 5 years. The general elections are held every 5 years. We used to have 450. Now this recent elections, which we had December 95, the number was increased by 100, so they are all 550 now. Representatives, forming the House of Representatives. We don't have a Senate here. We had the Senate. It's abolished now, so we only have the House of Representatives. The president is elected indirectly. So it's not like the American system where that the people vote for the president.
Well, now we're going to drive sort of up the hill and over, and of course you can see a lot of big, beautiful homes here, and this is where a lot of the embassies are located as well.